Welcome to BrainStorm 9000.
Greetings, Internet brains, and welcome to the world of BrainStorm 9000.
I'm Dr. Schultz, who hopes that Internet doesn't have any brains yet, and it's all your brains, people, Earthlings.
The Internet is a collection of brains.
Not according to Elon Musk. And right across from me is the ingenious and super intelligent person from this planet. We call her Master McMaster.
I do not take compliments well, but thank you for the kind introduction, Dr. Schultz.
Meaning the compliment wasn't strong enough? That's what you're talking about?
No, it's very strong. It's hard for me to accept positive comments about myself.
Well, we'll talk about it some other time.
You know, a lot of people have self-esteem issues, and that actually kind of relates to the topic.
That's why you do shopping all the time?
Today. Today we are talking about consumerism, materialism, the seemingly inherent desire to acquire things.
I'm sitting here and picturing a Neanderthal exchanging the biggest bone with a large amount of meat leftovers for a wheel. Or the wheel was invented later. Who knows?
Yeah, sure. Why not? I'll take one wheel, sir, and in exchange, you may have this meat.
Well, they probably were showing it. Or a group of dinosaurs going to a shopping mall. Can you imagine the size of the super shopping mall at that time?
I think everything would have to be plastic because they would just make a mess.
Okay. So let's talk. It's year 2018.
Yes,
The very, very eve of Thanksgiving.
Yes, it is Black Friday Eve, which means it's 2 days before Black Friday, which is the biggest shopping holiday in the world, in America, definitely in America.
Well, if it's in America, it's probably in the world who does more shopping than us.
No one.
You know what? Because of this craziness, I spent literally 1.5 hours on the bus getting into the city from where I am instead of 25 minutes because of an enormous amount of traffic. All the cars coming to New York probably to do shopping.
Yeah. Yeah, or like holidays plus shopping. You gotta be there the night before for those fucking doorbusters.
Okay.
So definitely material things, desire for material things, and just acquiring is pretty pervasive.
Yes.
In America in the year 2018, and it has been for the past, couple of decades, but it hasn't always been that way.
Compared to people in 1957, statistics say, we have twice as many cars per person.
Yikes.
So I guess whoever had 0 still has 0, and whoever had 1 has 2.
Some people have 4.
We eat out twice as many times as in 1957.
That sounds accurate.
On average, we make more money or are wealthier, more affluent, and, surprise, surprise, are more dissatisfied.
Yeah, see, and this is so funny because it's surprising, but also completely not. Because in general, even like the American dream, right, is associated with you can have a better life if you make more money and then you can get more stuff. You become successful and then you can get the house and the car and you can go shopping and you can get all these very nice things and then you'll be happy, right?
Well, it brings me back to an idea that one of the philosophers I met once or twice in my life only, you wouldn't know who that is, introduced me to. It's called eudaimonia. Would you know who that was?
You've met me more than twice. Yes.
Are you a philosopher?
I am a philosopher.
And your name is Master McMaster because you have a master's degree in philosophy, correct?
You can call me that because of that. There's no other good reason to call me that.
So could you please define to some of the Earthlings and the internet brains, if they do exist, what eudaimonia actually is.
Yes, eudaimonia is an ancient Greek term that literally translates to human flourishing. It's an area of philosophy that focuses on the good life, the best life, what is going to really make humans happy and flourish.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but if I understood you properly, on the first round of this conversation, which happened, correct me if I'm wrong again, at our very first recording, is that eudaimonia actually is a process of getting where you want to get. For example, if you desire to get a master's degree in philosophy, in the process of studying and going through all the trouble and going to school, seemingly probably even in quote suffering, that's when you actually are in the process of achieving your eudaimonia, correct?
So that's my personal interpretation. And there are different theories of how you obtain this satisfaction, this flourishing. But the one that I latch on to the most, which is Aristotle's version, that eudaimonia, or happiness, is the activity of the soul in accordance with virtue. So that's what I subscribe to, that happiness is not a thing that it's not that thing at the top of the mountain where once you get to the top of the mountain, then you're happy. It's the journey. And I believe earlier I may have referenced the classic Miley Cyrus song, "It's the climb."
I could not sing it better myself.
Yes.
So then probably going to the point when you are going to get what you need is more satisfactory than when you finally get the thing. I've noticed it many times myself.
Yep.
For example, studying, going to school to get my MD, and then 6 years later, that's how it is in Europe, I got my diploma. And
then were you happy then? Was everything complete?
Well, it was complete, but I needed another goal to go through the process of eudaimonia. So some psychologists probably noticed the same thing.
Yeah, actually, so there's this psychologist, David G. Myers, PhD, who has said that compared with their grandparents, today's young adults have grown up with much more affluence, slightly less happiness, and a greater risk of depression and a sort of social pathology. And has also said that our becoming much better off over the past 4 decades has not been accompanied by, quote, 1 iota of increased subjective well-being.
So basically this generation on average has more wealth but less happiness and are more at risk for depression and other mental illness, correct?
Yeah, that's what it seems like.
Well, from where I sit in my office, of course, that has been the case, and I can see an increasing number of people signing up to see me on ZocDoc, and by trying to call my office, I'm busy. The only thing that I can compare the situation in the United States, and let's remember, I went through all this stuff. I came here 30 years ago in 1988 from the Soviet Union before the wall came down.
Which was the opposite of materialism, right?
No, we wanted stuff, and if they call it throwing out. So if all of a sudden they, in quotes, threw out, meaning offered us unexpectedly in a store, let's say green bananas from Cuba, which we didn't get to see too frequently, we would be standing online in a queue for probably a few hours. Pregnant women would be in a queue for a couple of hours to get watermelons, rare cookies, and if they, again, in quotes, threw out good shoes, and the main problem in Russia when I grew up were actually male pants. I don't know why, you couldn't get them trousers. So if they threw them out, there would be a huge line. So people wanted to consume, they just couldn't, and they couldn't go abroad. So when we came in, we had to go through the process of achieving the American dream.
Yes.
So I worked very hard, and I studied, and I wound up with a large house, with a 2-car garage, 2 cars in the garage, blah, 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 blah. I cannot say that I'm less happy than I was when I was 6 years old, but growing up in the Soviet Union, I didn't have even an opportunity to get all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I was very happy when I got my first bike. And what we did have, which I'm not observing, at least in New York City, is a large nuclear family. We were all together, enjoying each other's company. And of course, my grandmother and my mother baked instead of buying cakes in the store, but sometimes we did. And they cooked instead of going out.
Yeah.
And we never actually went out until much later. We were poor. But we were happy. So happiness probably is not defined at all by the amount of material things you have. Probably for happiness, and I'm no philosopher, you need to feel supported, loved, appreciated, safe, secure.
Yeah.
Right?
No, and actually, so, I mean, there have been a lot of philosophers going all the way back to the pre-Socratics, before Socrates in ancient Greece, who have talked about this idea that material things are not what's going to make you happy.
Right.
Like the Stoics, for example, were all about like a very minimalist lifestyle and not being attached to any material goods because those things are fleeting.
In Japan and in many other countries now, minimalism is a new thing.
Yeah.
It's in vogue now.
And it's becoming more and more of a thing here because, you know, I feel like, I mean, so me growing up in the United States, I've been like indoctrinated into materialism. And it's still like, I'm aware of it, but it's still hard to shake because, you know, with all of the advertisements and all of the glamour and all of this whole culture that we live in, it's ingrained in us this idea that if you get this thing, then you'll be happy. And you see this person in an advertisement, you know, with this handbag or with this fragrance, and they're so glamorous, and you like, it's like a subconscious thing that's like, oh, if I get that, then I'll have that lifestyle and then I'll be happy.
It's so beautiful. It's like a chandelier.
It's like a chandelier. But,
Classy.
yeah, so obviously, so it seems pretty clear at this point that materialism, getting things, consuming things, while it can bring you some pleasure, it's not going to bring you happiness. You know, like someone who can have like everything they ever possibly, all the physical things in the world, but they can still have like an empty life. So I don't know. So does materialism then mean that you're bound to be less happy? Because, you know, there's been a lot of research that finds that people who want more stuff are less satisfied.
Well, it turns out that probably people who neither have materialistic values nor the resources to get more things are actually the most satisfied out of all the groups, according to research.
Right, yeah, because that's another thing is like materialism, part of it is that it creates a need. It creates the desire for something. And so then your happiness then becomes dependent on satisfying that desire. But then what if you can't satisfy it?
So some people feel that it's possible that more money itself doesn't make you less satisfied, but the constant striving for increased wealth does. Well, I don't know about that. I have a number of friends who are wealthy, and they seem to be actually pretty satisfied with what they've got, and they have pretty functional families.
But is
people I
it
know.
because of all the stuff they have?
It helps. It's not because it helps. And I read somewhere that actually a large number of people who win lottery wind up actually extremely unhappy and broke again, and a lot of things come around that make them unhappy. So basing happiness on ability to buy more stuff, somehow having more stuff means you are better in some way? Probably not. Probably also it contributes to social classes defined by wealth, and maybe has something to do with the increasing gap between rich and poor.
Yeah, definitely. And
not that I know how much you can increase the gap.
it's
huge.
already so big. But yeah, and what the idea here basically is kind of goes back to what we started with,
Right.
the idea that you know, if you subscribe to this theory, that happiness is not in just getting a thing,
Right.
or, obtaining this or obtaining that, but it's more like a journey. So if you are striving for something, then that's where happiness and satisfaction is. That the mistake that you can make is in thinking that once you get enough money to get that sweet sports car, that's when you're going to be happy.
So basically, first you see a picture of Lamborghini. That's how you say it, Lamborghini or Lamborghini?
Lamborghini.
Okay, so you see a picture of Lamborghini in black and white, and then you see it randomly in one of the magazines in color. And then you start dreaming about it. Mm-hmm. And then you start putting away, and then you start putting away all your money. And then 20 years later, you finally get it. Mm-hmm. Would it make anybody happy?
I feel like there would be definitely a sense of accomplishment and a sense of pleasure and satisfaction, but I think it would be fleeting.
Exactly.
Personally.
Yes. So, like it or not, but it seems like all the basic things that make us happy still are capable to provide us with lasting happiness and satisfaction. Again, being appreciated, loved, feeling secure, healthy, feeling that you are contributing somehow to the cause you appreciate.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be being a philosopher or a doctor. I met people who have very simple jobs and are extremely happy.
Yeah, I mean, it really, I think it's clear to a lot of people, even though it's hard to see through all of the cultural fog, that happiness is not contingent on material goods.
Right.
And I've heard of these studies before where people talk about how there's sort of like a, as far as happiness is related to income and ability to get things, there's like a cap.
Right.
Where I think I've heard it's like around $80,000 for like a household income, where if you make $80,000 a year, for example, as a household, you have enough money to get, the stuff you need to be comfortable and take some vacations, and you can get everything you need and some like extra stuff. But after that, making more than that, at least studies have shown that there's no increased happiness.
Well, it sounds like they studied people either in a very poor country, which is not the United States, or definitely outside of New York City.
It probably wasn't New York City.
In New York City or LA, $80,000 per person is probably good enough, because housing is expensive. But I get what you say. Basically, you say that increasing wealth after a certain point does not make people happy. Actually, I have to tell you that every single successful, in quotes, person, meaning making a lot of money, I know, works a lot.
Yeah.
For example, I work very long hours.
Yes.
And I'm tired all the time. Mm-hmm. Do I go on vacation? Yes. But it's short. And when I come back, I have to make up for what I didn't do when I was away on vacation. Mm-hmm. Most of my friends who run businesses are kind of, in quotes, hated by their wives because, or husbands, it depends who runs the business. I even know a couple when both people run large businesses. So I'm guessing they don't hate each other as much, because when they go on vacation, this person who is running the business is constantly on the phone and on the computer, and the other one is supposed to figure out how to have fun. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah. Well, so you were saying, so you work really long hours, you are tired all the time,
Yes.
and you work really hard. Are you happy? Do you feel content? Do you feel...
Well, I'm happy and I'm content, but not because of the hours I put in, but because you, Master McMaster, and I are on a quest. I hope it's not endless, but on a constant quest to make people be aware of their mental health,
Yes.
of the fact that their brains are the main organ.
Yeah.
Even in internet brains, the main organ is the brain, okay?
even there.
Yes.
And this reminds me of another philosophical idea of happiness that I think fits in really well with this and how you can look at consumerism and materialism and how that relates to your happiness.
Right.
And so this theory is from a former professor of mine at Boston University, Charles Griswold, and he has this idea that there are two different kinds of happiness. So there's first order happiness and there's second order happiness.
Oh, interesting.
And first order happiness you can think of as like you in the moment, day to day.
Right.
Your firsthand experience of everything. And that would be more like your experience of like pleasures. Like this food is really good and I just bought this new shirt and
Right.
it makes me feel awesome.
Right.
And I hung out with my friend and that was really fun. You know, these sort of like moment to moment, these small things. Second order happiness is taking a much broader view. So second order happiness is more about your overall life. How do you feel about your life in general? About where your life is going.
Yes.
About your purpose, about what you're doing, about what your goals are, about, you know, the kind of person you are. These sort of bigger overarching things that are always in the background. So first order happiness, you know, those things, they come and go. It's very fleeting. Second order happiness is much bigger. And that, according to Griswold, is really where that's the most important part.
I love this idea. I think it makes total sense.
And that's, yeah. So like when your second order happiness, you know, your reason for living, your drive, your goals, your values, when all of those are, you know, for more or less in order, that's that sense of contentment, that sense of satisfaction that can really contribute to this human flourishing.
I love this idea, but I have to tell you, I just received an email this morning that my favorite sneakers are going to be discontinued, and I have only 5 days to buy them.
Uh-oh.
I'm buying the goddamn sneakers.
You know what? Buy the sneakers because first order happiness is important too, right? Those moments, like, I mean, retail therapy is a thing, right? I do it all the time.
Well, actually, I need my sneakers because I did something to one of my knees. And these sneakers provide extra support and extra cushioning.
No, good for you. See,
Right.
there's a pair of shoes that I really need right now. Not because they're actually probably are bad for my feet because they're very high heels, but they're
Right.
very cute. I don't have a pair that looks like them yet, and I want them. But I'm not going to sink my whole worldview happiness on obtaining these. I think that, you know, I can afford them and it's going to make me happy and it's going to make me feel cute,
Good.
but it's not everything, obvious. You know, the bigger things are more important: job, family, love.
Yes, but still, we are hunters by nature, at least for those of us, which wouldn't be me, who believe in evolution. And this hunting need, like almost a genetic need for hunting and collecting, is engraved in us and is imprinted in our brains. And I suggest that shopping and doing all this Black Friday stuff satisfies this very basic first order need.
Yeah, but people can definitely take it too far, right? Like, I mean, I'm, you know, I don't know this for sure, but I have a feeling that these days there's a lot more cases of like hoarding
Right.
than there were maybe like 50 years ago. I don't know. What do you think?
Oh, yes. That's for sure.
So we have this natural drive.
Right.
We, you know, in some cases it can be good, in some cases it can be bad.
Right.
But what do you think? Let's talk about like the healthy way to approach materialism, because it's not going away. We're always going to want something. You know, I mean, very few of us will end up being Tibetan monks who can shed all material things and just focus on spiritual happiness. So
My guess is they are not even listening to our podcast. The
no,
monks.
they're not. They're more concerned with other things. So let's talk about the healthy way to approach materialism so that it doesn't bring your happiness down, but that you can keep it at that level, that good level.
So I'm not going to say anything innovative here. I think that first, it's a very good idea not to break down your life, not to destroy your life over a particular material or even immaterial thing. Because I suggest respectfully that our main objective is to be happy and healthy in any particular order. One doesn't exist without another. Everything else is secondary. So if you are capable, like Master McMaster, to budget your materialistic needs and don't go...
Well, don't give me too much credit, but yeah, go on.
But, it looks like you are pretty much in control of your finances, the way you speak about them. So if you can afford stuff and you can budget, then it's totally fine, because people with multiple children sometimes use Black Fridays to buy things that they needed for a year.
Right.
And they have a budget and they go ahead and spend it. And yes, they probably stand online starting at 4 a.m. or whenever it happens. But they get things done. So we shouldn't put them down. They are serving the needs of their family and children. But the other extreme, spending all your money that you have and basically maxing up your credit cards is not going to be very good. So the argument usually is that if I spend my money now, I can live my life the way I want to today, and I don't have to wait until tomorrow.
YOLO.
But guess what? Tomorrow is going to come.
You know what? More
come.
often than not, it will.
Right.
Yeah, so it's like enjoy yourself, but don't overdo it.
Yes, and if you have an obsessive tendency for shopping and actually spend too much time thinking about material things, and it's affecting negatively, this is an important point, it's affecting negatively your life or life of people around you who you care about, or even if you don't care about them, then you should go and find professional help. And the first step is to see a psychologist. And then you can figure out together whether or not it's some kind of psychotherapy, most likely cognitive behavioral therapy. People with obsessive compulsive disorder need medication. If you don't know what OCD is, watch a movie which is called As Good as It Gets.
Is that about OCD?
Oh, yeah, Jack Nicholson.
Really?
It's an amazing movie.
Okay, I'm going to have to rewatch that
Yes.
one.
Also, I have to tell you that people who suffer from bipolar disorder in the manic state have a tendency to overspend.
Yeah.
Shopping sprees happen very frequently.
I've heard that.
So mania means basically out of control.
Yeah.
So maybe on this super positive note, I'm going to stop talking about medical stuff and let Master McMaster to say something wise.
I just had one other thing to add, which is sort of Dr. Schultz gives us the psychological way to approach and evaluate how these things are affecting our lives and how we can make our lives as good as possible. So
Right.
I'm going to throw out a little philosophy here.
Please.
Nothing sophisticated, but one thing that you can do, even if it's not a problem, and everyone should do this, is to just take a minute on this, in this very spendy season, to sort of reevaluate how your consumerism affects your happiness.
Yes.
How is it really contributing to your happiness? And one thing that I really love that probably a lot of people have already heard of is there is this, she's sort of like a life coach. Her name is Marie Kondo she's from Japan. And she wrote this book called The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up, the Japanese art of decluttering and organizing. And she has this approach to material objects and as it's related to happiness,
Right.
where she'll tell you to go through the things you own and basically to decide what to keep and what to get rid of. You pick something up, like a shirt, and if it makes you feel happy just looking at it and you have like a reaction to it, keep it.
Right.
If it doesn't, toss it. even if it's the kind of thing that's like, well, I might wear it one day, or like, what if I want to look at this at some point? No, if you don't have an immediate reaction to it,
Right.
get rid of it.
Well, donate it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but like get it out of your life. Like you don't need all of this stuff. There are certain things that are important to you, and there are certain things that are going to make you happy, but there's a limit to that. And if it goes beyond that limit, why overcomplicate your life? Why clutter your life? Why keep amassing all this stuff that you don't really need? It's not going to make you happier.
So I guess our eudaimonia suggestion would be this. Declutter your life
Yes.
and keep your brains wide open.
Yes. Enjoy Black Friday, everyone. Enjoy the holiday spending season, but, don't overdo it. Keep yourself in check.
Especially if you are one of the internet brains.
Yes. All right. Farewell, internet brains.
Bye.
Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to another episode of BrainStorm 9000. If you like us, love us, or marginally tolerate us, hey, go ahead and subscribe, rate, and give us a review on iTunes or Stitcher or wherever the hell you listen to your podcasts.